Hi. Continuing with the series The Magic of Life, we will be discussing today about the gastrointestinal tract. It's also known as a digestive system. It starts from the mouth, progresses to the food pipe or the esophagus, moves on to the stomach, and we have the three parts of the small intestine, namely the duodenum, jejunum, and ileum, and the large intestine. It starts with the cecum, and appendix is a portion of the cecum, a small projection. We have the colon, which is ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, leads on to the sigmoid colon, and finally the rectum opening into the anus. So we have the gastrointestinal tract to perform all the digestive and absorptive functions. It is also closely linked to the brain in terms of satiety regulation, and obviously the microbiome, which we will discuss later, also has a role in this gut-brain axis. Liver and pancreas are important structures related to the gastrointestinal tract. Bile is secreted by the liver. It's very important for fat digestion and absorption. The pancreatic juice also has multiple digestive enzymes. The pancreas, as we will discuss later under endocrine hormones, will also have endocrine functions, and it secretes insulin and glucagon, both of which are hormones closely related to glucose metabolism. This is a diagrammatic version of what we just discussed. So it starts with the mouth, we swallow, the food goes to the food pipe, we have salivary glands, we have the parotid gland in this position, we have the submandibular gland, and the submental below the chin. So we have salivary glands which start the digestion process. The saliva has an enzyme called amylase, and it has various other chemicals. The teeth have a role in chewing the food and making it more easily digestible. We have the food pipe, which is just quickly to bring the food down to the stomach. So this food pipe is just a connecting tube, nothing more than that. In order to avoid the stomach contents coming up into the food pipe, we have a sphincter. So sphincters are areas where the muscle is tight, so it kind of acts like a valve and prevents regurgitation into the other direction. So suppose the stomach is full, this sphincter may still not be able to hold back, and we get what is called reflux. Smaller babies and patients with persisting cough are at higher risk of reflux. The stomach has a typical shape. It runs from left to right, and then on the right side it goes to join the first part of the small intestine called the duodenum. The duodenum leads to a jejunum, which is a long part, and then the ileum, which connects to the ileocecal junction. So the lower part of the large intestine is called the cecum. The small tail-like projection is the appendix, and this is where we sometimes get food particles obstructing or infection happening as a result of the obstruction. We call that acute appendicitis. The reason acute appendicitis is serious is because it's a very thin and fragile organ. When it gets blocked, it can burst, and acute appendicitis can result in leakage of the intestinal contents into the cavity, which is the peritoneal cavity, and then that's a serious condition. The large intestine has the ascending colon, the transverse colon, which is the horizontal colon, the descending colon, which comes downward, then the sigmoid colon, and finally the rectum is the collecting chamber where the stool is kept, and the anus has the internal sphincter. When the internal sphincter relaxes with our urge to defecate, the food comes down from the rectum into the anus, and when we are finally ready to pass the stool, the lower sphincter, the external sphincter, also opens and the stool is shed. The voluntary control of stooling happens with age, so the toilet control is a landmark or milestone in the age of the child. Usually 18 months to 2 years they are able to control. The same control also applies to the urinary tract, where the sphincter control is there. So we have the liver. The liver produces the bile, which is stored in a bag called the gallbladder. The gallbladder connects to the biliary tract, which connects to the duodenum, the second part of the duodenum. The pancreas produces enzymes, and it sits in the C shape of the duodenum, and it's a tail-like structure, and that secretes what we discussed earlier, the digestive enzymes mainly meant for protein digestion and various other functions as well, and the hormones as we discussed. So this starts with chewing and action of the salivary enzymes, which is part of the saliva, and the digestion continues in the stomach. The acid pH in the stomach starts the digestive process. There are enzymes in the stomach as well. This is followed by the hepatic and pancreatic enzymes. The intestinal lining itself produces certain digestive enzymes. The protein gets broken down to peptides and amino acids to be absorbed. The enzymes also have local gut hormone-like function which control the motility of the gut. So when we have fatty foods, the motility slows down to allow absorption. When we have certain chemicals released, the digestion goes faster and the intestinal emptying is faster. If we take too much sugar, for example, it absorbs water into the intestines. We may have loose stools. Fat is digested in the presence of bile and lipase enzyme. The medium chain triglycerides are a certain type of fatty acids which are triglycerides which are directly absorbed into the gut lymphatic system. So suppose we have a liver abnormality, we can bypass the absorption mechanism using bile by using medium chain triglycerides. The dietary sugar is digested by enzymes like amylase, maltase, lactase and glucose is absorbed finally into the bloodstream. The body utilizes the sugar as glucose. The absorptive ability is increased by the villi, which basically expand the surface of the small intestine to equivalent of more than a football ground, and it greatly increases the surface area for absorption. So this is the close picture of how the villi look like. So villi going on to the crypts, and both these increase the surface area. We have the cells lining, and the lower part has the Paneth cells and also the cells dealing with lymphatics and the immune mediators. So we have the stem cells as well, which have a role in repair process. So the microvilli or the brush border of the villi kind of help in the movement, and the villus beats in a peristalsis motion. So the intestinal muscle contracts, the villus also beats towards the direction of gut emptying, that is from the proximal end or the stomach end to the distal end or the anal end. We have the gut microbiome and the gut associated lymphoid tissue closely associated with the digestive system. So the gut is home to 10 to the power of 14 bacteria. We have more bacteria in the gut than we have cells in the body. These are non-pathogenic, they live in close balance with the host. They have an important role in the host health, and they prevent pathogenic bacteria from colonizing. They also have a role in the way our gut-brain axis works. So our thought process, our personality, our responses, these are related to our gut bacteria as well. It's very interesting that the gut bacteria is linked to our genetic background as well. So according to your food habits in the generations previous to you, the genetics, epigenetics varies, and the nature of your reactions vary as well. The gut has multiple nests of immune-related or gut-related lymphoid tissue, also called in short as GALT. This has a role in development of immunity, along with the thymus, the tonsils, and the other lymphoid tissues, which are part of the swallowing mechanism. So the tonsils are right at the entrance of the airway and oropharyngeal cavity. So as we discussed earlier with the lymphatic system, the tonsils are present right as you open the mouth. You'll see it in the back as two pillars. The thymus is present in the upper part of the mediastinum. You can refer to my video on the lymphatic system as well. And all these have a role in maturation of our immune system, especially the lymphocyte function. So this is the tonsils. We can have infections in the crypts of the tonsil and tonsillitis. In young children, the tonsil grows as a reaction to the growing or maturing immune system, and sometimes it causes obstructive sleep apnea. There is a tissue behind the nose called the adenoids, which is part of the lymphatic system as well, and that may enlarge and cause nasal obstruction. So the thymus is in the upper chest as we discussed, and it produces a hormone called thymopoietin related to the T lymphocyte maturation. So we will be discussing the musculoskeletal system next. Thank you.